Everything can be a risk. Having kids is risky. Getting married is a risk. Driving down the highway is a risk. Starting a business is a risk. Staying with an employer is a risk. Apple and Steve Jobs. In 1985, Jobs was ousted from Apple. He then went and founded and launched Pixar and Next, and both those businesses became huge successes. Then he eventually gets asked to come back to Apple and transforms it into one of the biggest companies that we know today. Sometimes you actually need to make the decision, face the fear and deal with it anyway, and see what happens. You might surprise yourself.
Time to get fired up. Yeah, I'm getting fired up.
Your thoughts can become plans, plans can become actions, and actions become a reality. We share powerful stories and simple steps to fast track your business and personal growth. Are you ready to make it happen? Let's get fired up. Overcoming fear and taking control of your business journey. Look, it's no shock to anybody that fear of failure holds back even the most talented entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to break down how to move past it. So let's cover how to overcome fear and gain some control. Like the role of fear in business, it's common. It's common in entrepreneurship. It's common with my clients, and especially when we're making big decisions. Fear often then manifests into procrastination, self-doubt, and inaction. So things to think about here is like failure isn't fatal. So don't treat it like it. There are things that I speak about with my clients when it comes to the fear factor of making a decision or heading in this direction or heading in that direction, is to think about it like, is it a revolving door or is it a one-way door? And what that means is that if you make this decision, can you switch it back? And quite often the answer is yes. So therefore, what am I worried about? If I turn this on and it doesn't work, I can turn it off. So sometimes you actually need to make the decision, face the fear and deal with it anyway, and see what happens. You might surprise yourself. The other issue is that it causes that decision fatigue because we just keep worrying about what might go wrong. What about worrying about what might go right? Even if something does go wrong, you've got to view mistakes as learning opportunities rather than setbacks. There's always something to learn in the problem, and it's not going to break. It's not going to cause anything significant. So I want to talk about a couple of examples of, stories of people and companies you might know where a big setback has happened to them, but they've overcome the issue, they've overcome the fear and returned quite commonly in a better position anyway. Apple and Steve Jobs. In 1985, Jobs was ousted from Apple. He then went and founded and launched, Pixar and Next, and both those businesses became huge successes. Then he eventually gets asked to come back to Apple and transforms it into one of the biggest companies that we know today. Oprah Winfrey, early on in her career as a news anchor and a journalist, she was demoted. And she was like, I work hard, I try hard, I'm doing everything I can. The fear should have kicked in there and told her, or maybe she was thinking about it, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I should just give up, maybe I should try another industry. No, she battled on, took that as a learning lesson. It gave her the drive and motivation to build one of the biggest media companies that we know of and is one of the most influential people in the world. You might know of a chat and communication platform called Slack. I use it, I've used it, I know many people that use it. In fact, I think it's one of the most common chat platforms for internal businesses in the world. But did you know that Slack actually didn't start as Slack? The guys who started that were actually building a game, and the game was called Glitch. They got funding, they built the game, it didn't get the cut through and the user base that they needed. But what they learned through the process of actually building that business, which had some chat functionality in it, was, hang on, this is pretty cool. And the chat function is pretty good and it works quite well. Like, how can we develop and work on this? And now the gaming idea turned into one of the biggest companies that we know in that communication and chat space across the world. So the common issue here is don't look at failure as a setback. Like I said, it's not fatal. Write down what went wrong. We weren't prepared. We didn't see this coming. We haven't broken this down into chunky enough goals or ideas to see how we can redirect. But there is nothing that is fatal about it. And I think that if we can all try and lean into that fear a bit more, you'll be surprised what can come out of it. So how do you do that? You've got to break down big goals. Big things are scary. Climbing Mount Everest is scary. You don't go, I'm going to climb it and then start tomorrow and start heading up the hill. You will die. You need to start with basic training. You need to start with small steps and smaller obstacles to build up to that. And that applies to anything. So some of the best ways to do this is take those big goals and break them down into manageable chunks. Focus on the activity. Do X amount of Y for Z period of time. This was a big thing for me through that transition from me going to the corporate world into my own business was, what is today's activity? What am I doing today? And planning that and just focusing on that. Big thing like with the podcast is none of the metrics matter to me. The goal is 100 episodes. That's what's going to happen. That's what I'm going to do. If I focus on the activity, the results and everything else should speak for themselves. With calculated risks, yes, everything can be a risk. I'll give you an example. Having kids is risky. Getting married is a risk. Driving down the highway is a risk. Starting a business is a risk. Staying with an employer is a risk. So start taking calculated risks. Do enough research and get into enough planning to go, I'm comfortable enough to make the decision. Because you will never get it to a point where you are fully comfortable, fully prepared, all the stars are aligned, everything is amazing, now I'm going to take that decision, because it just doesn't happen that way. Do your research. Gather as much information as possible to assess the potential outcomes. Knowledge reduces that uncertainty. So the more you know, and then the more you can talk to people about it, and I'm talking about the right people, the people who have been there, who have done it, who have actually done what you're trying to do, then that will start to reduce some of that uncertainty. Start small. Test ideas on a small scale before actually fully committing to it. I actually started another business last year called The Buckle Shop. And the reason I started that was because with the custom buckles business, which is manufacturing with minimum quantities and stuff, a lot of customers were saying, I just want one, I just want one, I just want one. And you can't manufacture one of anything without a high cost. But what they were asking for was pretty generic. So tested the market, everyone seemed pretty keen on it, got the thing set up, launched the store, launched the site, and within the first month of assessing this, if it's going to work or not, we decided it wasn't. Switched it off, killed it, that's it, done. But it's a revolving door, like I said, when making those decisions. Is this going to change my whole world if it doesn't work? No. Can we backtrack if it doesn't work? Yes. What's the damage done if it doesn't work? Nothing. So have a go. Start small, test ideas on a small scale before committing, and you can launch a better version, or you can ask for waiting lists, or you can go for feedback and get things and feedback from people before you actually go down that path. Consider the worst case scenario. Identify like what potential downsides can happen and ensure you're prepared to handle them if they occur. Think about risk planning. Develop strategies to reduce risks, like setting up contingency plans, for example, and for diversifying, like meaning if that doesn't work, can we do this? If plan A doesn't work, what about plan B? You want to be sure that you've got some sort of backup plan if the thing that you were actually putting in place doesn't work as well as you thought. And it's okay. I think when it comes to these things, always be prepared to change the plan. Just don't change the goal. Monitor and adjust what you're doing continuously, like track progress, be flexible enough to adapt if things don't go in plan. There's nothing worse, I think it's Einstein, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. That's his version of insanity, which is fair enough. But if what you're doing is not getting the result, if what you're doing is not working, then pivot and change. It goes the other way. I've actually had personally goals that were set for the end of the year, and come the middle of the year, I'm hitting those goals. So what shall I do? Shall I stop? No, I have to pivot. I have to adjust, and actually maybe I can do more now. So increase is just as good as decrease, providing we're not adjusting the goal. Now this one, people may relate or not relate, but it's really about the power of visualization. You know, imagining what your success looks like, whether that's business or personal. Get these things up on the wall, put them on your phone screen, put them on your computer screen, put it in the bathroom, write it on the mirror, put it places where you can see, because when you see, you think, and when you think, it actually starts to become some of that reality. All right, guys, to recap that episode, I'd be realizing that fear is common when you're heading into the unknown or making decisions. It's a real thing. It doesn't go away. The biggest and most successful people in the world, most successful sports stars, everything, the fear factor is always there. It's about rising above it and overcoming it. So how do you do that? To recap, do your research, test small ideas, think about what the potential worst case scenario would be. Think about plan B and contingency. If I do this, can I come back from it? That's that revolving door. And a lot of the decisions you're worried about making, you can turn the landing page on and turn the landing page off. You can bring out the new product and then take the new product away. It's not as bad as you think. Think about the revolving door decision versus the one-way decision, which can cause bigger problems, requires way more research and checkpoints. Monitor and adjust what you're doing, do it frequently, and assess accordingly. And I would say to you, take a challenge from this and actually take one small bold action on something that you've been avoiding and get into it. And look, success is on the other side of fear. So take the leap and make it happen. We'll catch you later. If you've enjoyed this episode, then subscribe on YouTube or follow our podcast on your favorite platform. We drop a new episode every week. You'll be doing us a massive favor. If you know someone that would benefit from listening to this, then share it with them. You'll be doing them a massive favor. And if you want the tips, tools, and resources to support you on this journey, then join our exclusive Facebook community and follow our socials. You'll be doing yourself a massive favor.